Hello, welcome back to the Let's Talk About Movies podcast. I'm your host, Diego Crespo. With me today to talk about movies are two gentlemen from across the pond, across the United States, across the United Kingdom. Did I fuck that up? Is that geographically correct?
Um, I'm not sure.
United Kingdom. Am I fucking that up?
Sure.
Yes, you got that bit right.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a journey to get there.
Yeah.
um, Gregory.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. Also,
Excellent.
Logan. Hello. How
Hi.
are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for
All right.
having us on.
No, I'm happy to
Yeah,
have you
thank
guys
you.
on. So these two gentlemen host a podcast called CHASIN STATHAM, where it's about, you guessed it, bald action daddy Jason Statham and his
Absolutely.
career through Hollywood, leading up to his penultimate masterpiece, The Meg.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for remembering what the goal of the podcast was. We
So
appreciate it deeply.
Logan and I met on a recording of Ghost of Mars. Greg could not be there to join us, so I want to give the floor to Greg and talk a little bit about yourself, the podcast, and why we're here today.
Well, how I usually like to introduce our podcast is the fact that it started with, I think, 5 words. I can't really count. It was, I want to suck bald daddy. How many words is that? That's 5? Yeah.
I
5
want
words.
to suck bald daddy. So 6.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, whatever. Okay. I barely passed maths. But,
Really?
yeah, it's a weekly podcast where we review one Jason Statham film each week. We've been in the rough period so far, but we should be hitting our stride. We're hitting Crank soon, which is a big one. But yeah, it's basically just an excuse to catch up and chat for a couple hours every week and celebrate Bold Daddy himself, Jason Statham.
It's a great podcast. You should all check it out. Again, Logan Kenny's also here. Hello. How are
Hi.
you?
I'm very good, thank you.
Now, we're going to pivot to you for a second because you chose the movie we're going to talk about today. Brian De Palma's 2001 film, or 2000 film,
Yeah,
Mission
good
to
correction
Mars. Yeah, I
Don't
apologize.
respect the Brian, man.
I apologize. But why did you pick this today?
Well, I mean, Greg was the one that suggested it in the chat, but I know he picked it because of partially because of how much I love it. I was the one who introduced it to him, and I saw this movie back in 2017 for the first time. I got a cheap DVD from Amazon, and I wanted to watch it because I was going through the Palma phase. Put it on, thinking this will probably slap. Not gonna lie. And then I watched it, and I felt my soul leave my body for a bit, and I cried a lot. And it's left a profound impact on me the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. I don't know. I don't remember the exact date, but I know it was 2017. And it's lingered with me for a long time, and it is kind of what I think of when I think of really emotional, introspective science fiction. And I love that shit. I've loved sci-fi my whole life, so it's a really profound impact on me. And so when talking about a movie that you're passionate about, that maybe a lot of people aren't particularly enthralled with or have even seen, I think Mission to Mars is one of the first that would come to mind. So it's a really good pick to talk about in this format. So thank you for allowing us to talk about it.
This is a truly anomalous formation. It's unlike anything that we've seen so far. We're trying not to go too nuts up here, but we think there's a good chance that this could be water. Of course, if that's correct, then we may have found the key to permanent human colonization.
Yes. Okay, we're ready to light this candle.
Let's go to Mars.
I am very glad you both brought this movie to my attention because I am a big De Palma fan, but I had never seen Mission to Mars. And I could see why people are not drawn to it. And I could also see why you wanted to talk about it. Because it's great. And people should recognize that more. And I think I get why people were not drawn to it when it was released and why it's kind of been almost like this forgotten treasure of the De Palma film library, you know?
Mhm.
Maybe he's got some more hidden gems. laying around his more recent filmography, but I think this one's going to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
It's classical filmmaking in a way that like if this exact movie came out in like say 1980 or 1970, I
Hmm.
think it would be a bona fide classic. I'm actually kind of shocked that there's not a bigger like fan base rallying around this movie.
Yeah, me too, man. Like it's a constantly shocking thing because like even like especially on like scenes like Letterbox, which kind of revived like the kind of more reviled movies from classical directors, like how like the big Miami Vice cult and like which we're all a part of
Oh yeah,
because that
yeah,
movie
of
Yeah,
slaps.
course.
Miami
But like
Vice
it's
Gang.
yeah, but it's like on that site in particular and on like film Twitter scenes, like movies like Mission to Mars should be like reappreciated. Even something like AI, which is like, I mean, it wasn't reviled, certainly grown in reputation over the years. And I'm kind of shocked that Mission to Mars doesn't have the kind of same journey that something like AI
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, I think I'd guess at least part of some people's kind of maybe confusion or hesitance with the movie is at least from what I've seen, it's the most kind of restrained Brian De Palma's ever been in terms of direction. Like, he does have a lot of his kind of hallmarks in there, like really long takes, and there's like one scene with a split diopter, but I mean, it's not anonymously directed at all, but it is interesting to view it kind of in the filmography of the director, because it does kind of stand out. It does kind of feel like something he came on to. Like, I don't think he had really any involvement in development, but he still kind of leaves his signature, which is kind of the sign of kind of the auteurist idea. The fact that he can come in and kind of make a Brian De Palma movie out of something that you wouldn't really expect from him. Kind of like how he did in like Mission Impossible or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that. There is something about how like he's restrained himself in a lot of senses, but I also think he's opened himself up in a lot of other ways. I think my favorite other De Palma movie, because this is my number one favorite Brian De Palma film. My second favorite is Carlito's Way, and there's weird similarities between them and how they open up like a form of empathy that De Palma doesn't really
Yeah.
get into. He's not like a nihilist, he's not really. Well, he's got some nihilistic tendencies, like
Yeah.
Blowouts, pretty bleak, Scarface. But like he's never you'd never think of De Palma as like cinema's great humanist. You'd never
No.
think of that.
Yeah, no, no,
He's
no.
more of a sleaze exploitation kind of dude. Like
Yeah.
even in like more recent stuff, like Femme Fatale and Black Dahlia, they're fantastic in my opinion. But like they don't really get into like the human side of the people. Not really. Even but Mission to Mars and Carlito's Way both really care about emotion. Like in Carlito's Way, it matters. Like see, because Carlito's Way kind of follows standard rise and fall gangster epics, and to a certain extent. But unlike maybe any other, you care if he falls because you've been built up to care about him. He's shown as a human being, not just like as a collection of gangster tropes. And De Palma's like filmmaking and his approach to like how he implements music and how he implements the camera make you care about this character. And I think Mission to Mars is kind of an evolution of that. It is all empathy instead of any exploitation, which does make it
Yeah.
feel like it's clear that he did come on, like he didn't develop the project from the ground up, but he has clearly brought that fully empathetic edge to it because obviously he was the chairman of the project, he was the director, and so you can't like view shots of this movie and not think that he really wants you to care about these people and he really wants you to care about what's happening. And it just kind of exudes through every frame of that movie. It's just compassion and like love for
Yeah.
humanity, which is so weird, but I love it.
Yeah, do you think that's partly why it's kind of been like brushed aside? Because De Palma does have that sleazy,
Yeah.
like over, like that's what people are really drawn to with him. And look, I would love to get like a sleazy space like thriller movie again.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, like that's very rare. Alien Covenant came out like 2 years ago now, and that's
Oh
like,
man. Oh man.
yeah,
Have you seen
bad.
Walter Hell's Supernova?
no,
That is a disaster. But I
oh,
think people kind of equate because that was like it had like three different directors, and the cut is not finished at all. but it's like that's a sleazy sex space film, and I feel they came out about the same time, and I feel like Mission to Mars and Supernova kind of got lumped together as kind of like space failures of the early 2000s, along with like Red Planet with Val Kilmer. Like these
Yeah.
movies all kind of got merged together. But like
Yeah.
Red Planet was like a generic like Val Kilmer joint, and Supernova was an unfathomable disaster. It's worth watching.
No, see,
It's absolutely worth seeing, but it's a disaster.
I thought I had seen Mission to Mars, and what I was thinking of was Red Planet.
Yep.
And not crazy.
Different movies.
Yeah,
Not
very,
Red Planet.
very.
Red Planet's not the best movie I've ever seen in my life.
No,
It's not the worst.
Strong words. No.
I would say average.
Somewhere in between those two goalposts.
Oh.
well, I mean, like the last Val Kilmer film I revisited was Batman Forever, so it's kind of all downhill from there, you know.
Yeah. I mean,
I think that's Logan's favorite Batman movie.
it's my favorite
really?
live action for sure.
Mask of the Phantasm is the best one.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Obviously.
great. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I love
masterpiece.
Batman Forever. I grew up with that. But I grew up with Batman and Robin as well, but Batman Forever is better.
Batman Forever, I could champion as like, I think this works. Batman
I
and
give it-
Robin, I admire.
I still think Batman and Robin works. Sorry.
I don't know.
I don't want.
They are
Okay, look.
gaudy.
I'm known for my hot takes. It's not intentional, I swear. So I could go into detail about how I think they're better than the Nolan movies, but I'm not going to. I'm just gonna stay calm
Yeah.
and pivot back to Mission to Mars.
All right, there we go. That was a test, and you passed.
One day, Diego. One day.
But Mission to Mars. On this show, let's talk about movies. We don't so much break down like the overall plot of the film. I want to talk about like the filmmaking, which we've already kind of touched on a little bit.
Yeah.
It is definitely more restrained, but I also want to talk about like the ideas in the film. Because Logan, you mentioned the empathy as well, and Greg, you mentioned the filmmaking. These really work hand in hand together to provide like this really touching approach to how people use science and these journeys as like a higher calling, like almost like a spiritual awakening of some kind. And that completely floored me because I basically knew only that this was a movie about a Mars space adventure. I didn't know anything else, so I came out the other side of this being like, "Wait, what the fuck?"
Yeah, it's like jarring at first, honestly, the emotional stuff. The thing that I think the film is mostly about, at least in terms of its ideas, is that it's about the contrast between the immediate effect of grief and the long-lasting implications of it. And I think that's clear in how it focuses on. Is it Gary Sinise? How do you pronounce his surname? Gary
Sinise.
Sinise. Okay.
I don't know.
Sinise.
That was a joke. I don't know if that's actually true.
God damn it, Diego.
I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure it's Sinise, but
Sinise.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Gary.
CSI New York.
His name is Gary.
Guy.
Calling him Gary. So
Sure.
Gary's
Gaz.
character is going through like long-term grief. He's lost his wife. He's lost her a while ago. The thing that she's not there anymore has completely sunk in, and he's not coping well with that. And later in the movie, spoilers for Mission to Mars.
Oh yeah, no. On this show, it's open season for spoilers. We're talking
thank
about
God.
top to bottom.
Okay. But like halfway through the film, Tim Robbins dies. He sacrifices himself in space so that his wife doesn't have to go and kill them both because she loves him. And it focuses on her facial expression while like he's sacrificing himself, and she's just floored by devastation. And the camera cuts back to her a lot through the second half of the movie. And that showed the immediate effect of grief. We're seeing what we never saw from Gary, and we show how these people are differently affected by it. And especially how in the final scene of like she wants to go back to Earth because it hasn't really sank in yet. Like the memories of like her husband are still on Earth. That's what I got from it anyway. And Gary wants to go with the aliens because he can finally let go and find a higher purpose somewhere else, a new home. And he's got his memories finally. He can finally embrace his memories, which is really sweet to me.
Yeah, I think the movie kind of really shows a contrast between like rationality and irrationality. Like science is kind of meant to be this kind of pillar of kind of logic and things always set in stone, but people aren't like that. People are messy and they do stupid things and they love one another, and I think the movie's kind of about using science as a way of kind of reaching out and trying to find something better, kind of beyond kind of the material, or kind of beyond what we know right now. Whenever I talk about this movie, I compare it to Contact. So two movies I love, and I think they're the two best movies I've seen about kind of science in a kind of humanistic way, as in like how we use science kind of as an extension of our kind of spirituality or our kind of existential longing. Like the reason Don Cheadle and Connie Nielsen go back to Earth is they have that's kind of their ideal at the moment, whereas Gary Sinise doesn't really have anything to go back to, and he's kind of searching for a kind of new purpose now that he doesn't really have anything on Earth, now that his wife's gone, and his kind of career isn't really what it used to be. So he moves on to something where he doesn't necessarily know what's there, but that's kind of what science is. It's kind of a journey for discovery.
Yeah, totally. I think also it's like, to further what you were saying, yeah, it's kind of like it shows scientists as people that are so in love with the idea of the human existence that they want to explore and search out more about it. Like almost instead of like a lot of the time in movies and in like culture at large, science is portrayed as something very rigid. It's like very people are like, this is fact, this is what it is, and everything has to be in order. There can't be anything beyond what we know because science is everything. Whereas in this, it shows science is something about mystery. It's about what do we not know, about finding what we don't know, out of love for the human being and out of love for the world around them, the universe. And I think that's really optimistic, especially in a time where like science is kind of like looked down on a lot by certain members of society.
You could say it. We're very open in this podcast about how we hate our government.
Are their initials DT?
Yes. Also, those right-wing motherfuckers who cut budgets and think that the world should just heat up so they can get more money. But like, it's something so optimistic about its viewpoint of science and about wonder, and it does kind of show like the correlation between kind of like science and religion, and like either just not even religion as like an organization, but just like spirituality. It's like
and kind of mysticism.
Yeah, it's like there might not be anything like a god, but there's something more than just what we see. There's a greater meaning that we are not aware of, and we are going to try and spend our whole lives searching for it.
That's what I really love about the ending, is the fact that you don't actually see what Gary Sinise is saying. You just get his reaction shot, and then that beautiful final shot of the ship kind of going kind of into the cosmos. Like his friends are imagining kind of what might be there, but we're never going to know. It's a personal thing to him, and it's something that we might kind of discover in the future when we're ready, or when it's our time. Which I think is kind of highlights kind of this dichotomy between like science and kind of spirituality that the movie's getting at, which is the fact that we don't necessarily know, but it's worth looking, I guess.
There's a thing with a lot of modern films, and I mean, by modern films I mean modern blockbusters, in that they strip away the journey in order for the destination. It starts, and then they kind of lie about plot points and shit to go into a rushed third act. There's no real like journey.
It's all plot rather than.
It's all like mechanics instead of like people or characters. It's about the destination. It's not about the journey. I'm trying to think of a good example of this. It's just kind of like sludge. I don't want to rag on Infinity War, but Infinity War kind of very much feels like plot, action, conclusion. There's nothing There's no meat on it to me.
You know what? That was the first one I thought of, and I was like, nah, I've been ragging on it too much in my podcast, even though I like it. And then you said it, and I was like, nah, that was the right call.
That's it. Yeah.
Or like Jurassic World, where things just happen.
Yeah, Fallen Kingdom is another one like that. Sorry, sorry, Diego. Fuck Jay,
no, I get it. Yeah, no, I'll say that movie works for me because of the director, not because of the story.
Well, he's my arch
but
nemesis, so I can't defend that.
Oh, I forgot.
But yeah, so back to the point I was making. It's just kind of like it is not about people. I don't know if it's an audience thing or if it's just a corporate thing, but people seem less interested in the journey than the destination. And I think Mission to Mars is really breathtaking in that it doesn't care about the destination. It's all journey, and it ends before you reach the destination, because seeing it would take away from what it is, what it means to you.
Yeah.
The clearest scene in the movie to me is like when he is lying in the almost bed, the pool thing, to transport him across space, and all the memories flash back, and he's just these fragments of humanity, just little grace notes that, like, a lot of movies with, like, if this movie was made today, these grace notes wouldn't be implemented. They wouldn't be there. It's all these little moments of life that make it worth living, like the look on your friend's face, like your wife at the altar, just like holding hands, dancing, just your friend reading a book to his kid, just all these stuff, like these memories just kind of flashing and giving you a complete idea of a person. And I just think that's really special, and I think it's so crucial in showing that it doesn't matter what's on the other side. It matters what it's doing to him. Like, it's finally letting him have peace no matter what's there.
Yeah, we only care about it to the extent that he does. Well, like, it only matters to us to the extent that it's kind of what Gary Sinise has been looking for, which is kind of a new path or a kind of new purpose now that he feels like there maybe isn't one on the path he's currently on. Which I think is, I feel like his performance is, I don't want to say distant, but there's a definite kind of melancholy and kind of sadness to him, and Tim Robbins, I think, as well, which might have been part of some people's disconnect with the movie. Is it is kind of deliberately paced in a way, and it is exciting, but it just never kind of cheaply thrilling, I guess.
I think it is kind of like distanced in like presentation and performance until Tim Robbins dies, and then it becomes very emotive by everyone. That scene in particular is one of the best scenes De Palma's ever filmed. The way it builds tension in every kind of movement of space is just outrageous. It's like it does what like Gravity did without the effects. Like it's just pure like genius filmmaking and performing. I'm not to rag on Cuarón more. I've done my part on that. But I'm just saying, De Palma doesn't need to rely on visual effects to get his work done. But yeah, so he builds tension with every kind of like single action, and then the realization in your head and like the viewer's mind, what he cannot be saved. Like, and back to what you were saying about rationality versus irrationality. Like Tim Robbins' wife, Connie Nielsen, who is like a genius scientist in her own respect, knows that she won't have enough fuel, but she tries to go anyway because she loves someone so much that she can't bear a prospect where they're not there in her life anymore. And like the tension that builds up as like the cable goes, like she reaches out the cable for him, and it gets so close, and then it's just that amount away, and he can't reach it, and then that knowledge that sinks in that he is not making it out of this movie alive. This is his moment. I think that's when the emotions start kicking, is when he removes the helmet. And that point on, because it focuses on her face and it focuses on Gary's and Jerry O'Connell's, and they all just feel such devastation that they can't quite like muster like the words to speak about. And then it transitions into Don Cheadle, and when Don Cheadle finds out, that dude's just fucking floored. He's devastated. And then the movie is all kind of about feeling. It's less about process and more about emotion. That's my take anyway.
Oh no, I love that. I think something that really also caught me off guard with the film is that so many films, and just storytelling in general, I don't want to like rag on a specific medium, death kind of seems like the end all be all. You know, when you lose someone, it is hard, but in movies that occasionally seems to be the finite point of a story.
Yeah.
You know, there's no exploration of what that means, and like you've been saying, the film is about how we process that, but I think it's
Yeah.
also a reminder that there's life after that for people. You know,
Yeah.
and sometimes there are very tragic circumstances where people can't move on. You know,
Mhm.
to no fault of their own, and it's hard to move past it, and so
Yeah.
uh, that's sad
I,
in its own right as well. But this movie makes sure to focus on people who can still live, can still survive, can still explore new things. You know, Gary's character at the end, of course, shoots off with the Martians,
yeah,
and
and
he
Connie
might not.
Nielsen choosing to go back home as
Yeah,
well.
they could still live. It won't be easy. It sure as shit won't be easy, but they will still exist, and they will still explore
Yeah,
new
I,
things that they
I,
would never have been able to
I
experience.
yeah, agreed.
I,
I
I
think a lot of Hollywood movies are afraid of exploring death. I'm sorry, Greg. I'll let you talk in a minute. I promise. Um, I think a lot of
love
Hollywood
you.
movies are afraid of exploring death because, like, people want happy endings. People want resolutions. And I think again that's another reason this might not have done so well is because it doesn't really offer resolutions. It just offers the hope that there might be something better. Their hope that there is catharsis out there. But like this movie, a lot of movies just don't want to explore death, and that's strange because death is a constant throughout our lives, and it's something that everyone thinks about. Like everyone thinks about the prospect of their own death and the prospect of their loved ones dying, and everyone will experience grief or some form, and everyone will die, and it's almost refreshing and comforting to show a movie that focuses about like the instant of death and also about how people cope with it because it can help
Yeah.
us while we're alive to cope with death and also accept it that it will happen to us at some point, but know that we can still have a tangible effect on those we leave behind, like the memories of Gary. Like Tim Robbins is still there, his wife's still there, even though they're gone now. They're somewhere else, and I think that's really beautiful. Greg, now you can go.
Thank you, Logan.
You're welcome.
Oh, I was. What was I say? Oh yeah, I think something that's really crucial to making this movie work as well as it does is the fact that these people know each other and like they have a long history together. And I really love the early scenes on Earth where it's just these people hanging out and just talking like normal people and joking around, and you really get a sense of like each of them and kind of their inner lives. Even the people who like die immediately, like the Russian guy, you kind of immediately get a sense of who he is. But it's especially true of like Tim Robbins. You've kind of been with him for like about an hour of the movie, and you see the fact that it's such a kind of tight knit group of people makes kind of the sacrifices, and the fact that Gary Sinise leaves, and the kind of the hope that the others have for him because they want him to be happy, and kind of the look on their faces when they see him kind of go on to somewhere that might potentially be best for him. I don't think you'd have that if they were just kind of a ragtag group that was kind of brought together and kind of had to kind of adapt to the situation and learn to work together kind of in a time of crisis. Like these are kind of old friends. I think that's where a lot of the power of the movie comes from, is kind of the relationships between people and the fact that their wants and desires are kind of so kind of clear, without ever kind of feeling kind of forced.
Yeah, it has a dynamic that a lot of these space adventure movies don't. I say
Yeah.
space
Feels
adventure,
like
but it's not really
family.
a space adventure. But it is like, it's like, yeah, it is. It's almost like Mass Effect, in the closest approximation I can. Whereas by the end of like say Mass Effect 3, you've formed a relationship about like 60 hours or more of gameplay with some of the people in your crew. So like going into like a final war with them means something because you're constantly afraid that you're going to lose them, and then there's also a comfort and gameplay of like having someone with you like that, even if they're just like a virtual avatar, but you've spent that time with them, and so in your heart and your brain recognizes there's some comfort there. And Mission to Mars creates that with the viewer, like having an hour with these people before things go wrong. And within the characters, they've spent so much time with each other that there's this comfort there. It matters when they die, but it also gives them the strength to keep going, even when shit does go wrong. And a weird comparison is Tony Scott's Men on Fire, which spends a lot of the time of the movie doing preamble before anything goes fucking wrong. It's like it's an hour, straight up an hour of Denzel bonding with Dakota Fanning, like taking her to swim meets and shit, and it's compelling because it's well acted and well directed and well written. But it means that when everything goes to wrong, it feels like you've just lost your kid. You feel like Denzel. You feel like you've just lost someone you love. And you feel the rage and understand why Denzel's just blowing up people with bombs up the ass. Like, you get it. You understand. And there's something like that in Mission to Mars about how it takes the time to forge relationships, to show us relationships as an audience. And then how dissolving them can affect everyone that's still left trying to pick up the pieces. Really sad movie, but it never feels, like, bleak.
Yeah, it's never depressing. It's an emotional experience.
It's sentimental, but not in an exploitative or insincere way.
Yeah.
Helps that it ends on hope. Like it ends not necessarily happily, but there's a chance for these people to kind of move on from this. Something I was going to say is that I think the writing and pretty much all of the performances are really spectacular, apart from Jerry O'Connell, who I don't love in this movie. He's the only one who kind of feels like he's playing a type, and he feels like it's really dopey in a few line readings. I don't think he's bad. I feel like he's kind of working on a different wavelength to the other people.
I think he kind of I think there's some nuances in his performance actually. Because initially he is kind of conveyed as like the kind of flirtatious, kind of panicky one. He's like the kind of comic relief of the group. But after Tim Robbins dies, he seems like he's doing it as a coping mechanism, and I got that through like the panic of his jokes, and especially in the scene where he's he's waiting for them to come through again. He can't hear from them, and he's just so afraid of being alone. Like that really hit me. Like he is kind of overplaying it at points, but like. It's not something that bothered me. It actually kind of felt like Diego said earlier, something that would be in like a 1980 or 1970 version of this movie. Like it feels like family. It feels like that little cousin you have that doesn't shut the fuck up. It's annoying sometimes, but you love them. And
here, I'm gonna go for
them, you'd be broken.
I'm gonna go for a deep pull here and say it reminded me of the late great Bill Paxton as Hudson in Aliens.
Mm-hmm.
In the sense that in the literal sense he's probably is what we'd consider overacting, but given what the character's going through, it's like
it makes sense.
It makes sense. Like of course they're overreacting to everything. They're trying to grasp onto like just anything that's like tangible, and their emotion, expressing it with their emotions is kind of the only way they can do that.
Yeah, everyone uses coping mechanisms when dealing with grief, and I think his is just going into the thing that he does for everything, which is trying to make jokes and be a dickhead.
Aliens is a lot broader than this movie.
No, that's also true, yeah.
And it's not very good.
No.
Oh my god. Like what the fuck, guys?
The worst alien movie.
You guys can't just drop this on my...
I think it's fine. I think it's like a 3.5 star movie.
I like it.
Oh my god, what's happening?
I nearly fell asleep, and I nearly didn't finish the movie.
Oh my god.
I'm sorry.
Look. No, here's the thing. I love it. It is not what the Alien franchise is or needs to be, and it's not even in like my top 3. So
I properly like 2 Alien movies.
I like all of the Aliens, I think.
And one of them is Alien vs. Predator.
If we get Alien vs. Predator, then...
Well, I guess I like Aliens, kind of.
I like Aliens 3. I've only seen the Fincher cut, which I like a lot. I like parts of Alien Resurrection. I think that's fun. It's bad, but it's fun. I love Prometheus and Alien Covenant. And I love Alien vs. Predator. I don't love Aliens. And I haven't seen the second Alien vs. Predator.
I have so many
You
mixed
are
emotions
not
right
missing
now.
out.
My favorite is the original, and then it's Covenant, and then it's Prometheus.
Well, we have the same number one.
I love it's weird because
I don't want to get into Covenant because I think it sucks.
I don't
Oh my
really
God.
We've had this argument, Diego. He's wrong.
No, he is. Yeah.
Basically, what Matt says about it, I agree with.
Why would you agree with Matt ever?
I rarely do, to be fair, but
like I love like it's weird because I don't really care for Ridley Scott a lot. Tony way better. But I just love his Alien movies for some reason. Like I think they're his best movies. It's that and Blade Runner and The Counselor are the best Ridley Scott movies.
Well, here to bring it back to Mission to Mars, I think why almost across the board the Alien movies. I know the Alien Prometheus prequels are kind of a mixed reception, but generally people have liked them. I'd say I feel comfortable saying that. Along with his first Alien and Blade Runner, even. His sci-fi stuff, I think, really draws people because he approaches it from the human element, like these organisms and like these industrial environments or like these biomechanical environments, and even if the characters aren't.
He approaches Covenant from a human perspective.
No, I was getting to there. Even if the humans are not the direct focus, the story is about like. How their environments like.
No, it's not. It's unbelievably nihilistic.
Which is why it works.
It's weirdly humanistic and nihilistic.
No, it is.
Slaps.
This is lunacy.
It's nihilistic to the point it is because it's trying to like show how important these people were to each other and how in that cold vacuum of space they've created for themselves with like creating life and not knowing what to do with it. They've made it harder to survive for themselves.
I mean, if you got a sense of anyone's relationship to one another, not played by Michael Fassbender, then sure.
The Catherine Waterston looking at like the photos of James Franco like after he dies, and like the Danny McBride stuff with his wife and the panic in his eyes.
Okay, yeah, Danny McBride's good in it, and his wife is good.
And then it gets up and or even like Billy Crudup dealing with his wife, and it's like there is empathy in there, and then it's just Ridley Scott being like, "Fuck you, everyone's dead now," and I'm like, you know what, I respect it. Like, it's at least interesting nihilism. Like it's really like, there is human beings here. They all have relations here. They don't matter in the cosmic sense of things because there's a big fucking alien. It's gonna kill you all.
Yeah. And the whole third act sucks. But, yeah.
And they've created hell for themselves
and
by creating David. Yeah.
Like human beings they've cursed themselves by a series of bad decisions and like thinking that they can create another race to be subservient to them. It's a combination of that. There is genuine human relations there, but like the consequences of their actions as a species and as individuals have just had them get ripped apart. It slaps. Cool. But back to a good movie. Stop being bitter, Greg. Good.
It's bad.
No,
a good movie like Mission to Mars.
Alien Covenant and Mission to Mars would make a great double feature because they are the flip side of the same coin. Covenant is about nihilism. Mission to Mars is about strictly empathy.
Yeah,
and they both have kind of the same ending, but in like a very different, very different purpose.
Yeah, they do have the same ending. Yeah.
What the hell is that? No idea, boss.
Prepare to abandon ship.
I said I wouldn't talk about Covenant because it makes me angry.
We once got lost in Edinburgh because he kept yelling at me about alien.
No, we got lost because I thought I was following you, and you thought I was. No, you thought you were following me.
I didn't.
Why would I know where your hotel was?
I thought we were just walking around there.
We ended up halfway across town.
wasn't too bad. It was like a kilometer from where we were meant to be, and luckily we realized. I was like,
it took a while because we were yelling about we were yelling about Covenant, we were yelling about Ghost Story, we were yelling about Dunkirk.
Yeah.
All of which I like one of those, and I don't like the others. But anyway, Mission to Mars.
Mission to Edinburgh now.
Yeah, come to Edinburgh, Diego.
I got it at some point.
I promise.
Brandog did it. It was great.
We stand Brandog.
Yeah, we do.
This is the Brandog support podcast. Anyway. What I was going to say earlier, before we got sidetracked, was like we mentioned earlier, there's this stuff about De Palma not really, from the rest of his filmography, it doesn't seem like a natural fit for him to make this movie. But it's just so
At least on paper.
Yeah, on paper. But he feels so in sync with every creative element. Like, the writing and his direction seem to, like, bounce off each other perfectly. Like, I don't know if that's him adapting to the script or him, like, contrasting the script with his own, like stylistic and thematic attempts, but it just feels so seamless. Like, it feels like he could have created it from the ground up. It feels like he could have just wrote this movie himself, because it feels so natural. None of it feels forced or stretched at all. Like, even with stuff like AI, which kind of feels conflicted between like the Spielbergian and Kubrickian, and like that kind of like the roots of these two different filmmakers' ideological strengths as filmmakers. This is not an insult or a compliment, by the way. I have no feelings on AI that I want to share. I'm just saying that it has these kind of like conflicted things at the core, which is why a lot of people, I think, are drawn to it. But Mission to Mars doesn't have that struggle. It is very seamless. It is very everything in service of the human spirit. Like, everything together to focus on like telling a story that could make people feel better about being alive.
Yeah, I think that is a credit to the screenplay as well. Just the fact that like the characters are so clearly defined without ever kind of falling into types. Well, only occasionally falling into types, I guess. And yeah, everyone's goals are very clear. And it's just like incredibly well paced, because it's not necessarily a fast movie, but I think like it takes its time with key kind of set pieces, like when they're trying to get to the thing to land on Mars. Like it kind of shows the process in an almost kind of 2001-y way, where you see kind of each incremental step of kind of the procedure of what they have to go through. But it's not. But it's different in the fact that you actually kind of care about these people and you want them to succeed. Although that's not a slight against 2001, they're very different in their aims.
I'm not getting into 2001 discourse.
No, Logan, no. But
my take is it is good.
Yeah, no, I really like the point you just made,
I
Greg.
I saw it in 70mm.
Oh my god.
In a specially projected theater that knows what they're doing. And I watched it, and then I left at the end, and that's it. I have.
Anyways,
on that movie.
I think why Brian De Palma is such a great filmmaker in the long run is because he knows when to restrain his style. Like, there's always so many discussions about, like, well, does a director have good, like, interesting style? Is a director more restrained? And the answer is, it depends on the fucking project, because you idiots, there's not like a coverall answer. Art's more complicated than that.
I guess like people like Scorsese and De Palma can they're the first to come to mind from that kind of new Hollywood era. They can very easily like fluctuate themselves to what the script requires the most, while bringing something distinct to it. Like, they shape their projects undeniably, but they know how to like rein themselves back when necessary. Like, for example, like, it's wild that Hugo was right before The Wolf of Wall Street. Like, but if you look at like the idiosyncrasies of their filmmaking, like, you can tell, oh, that's Martin Scorsese, but he's clearly doing very different things. And De Palma is kind of similar. Like Femme Fatale came out after Mission to Mars, and that shit is wild, and that's unrestrained De Palma. But he's clearly decided to hold back a little and channel his talents and his 30-year history of filmmaking into something a little bit different, a little bit special, in a kind of otherworldly way. I think that's like a sign of a really great filmmaker. Also, it's kind of like there's some wrestlers that work the same match over and over again, and then there's other wrestlers that adapt to the people they're working with to tell an interesting and unique story with those wrestlers. And I think that De Palma is like the latter of those wrestlers. Like, he can take a script and he can work with it to bring out the best of its potential while showing something unique about himself in the long run. I love De Palma. I think that Mission to Mars is kind of like the trend. I think if this movie even came out in the early 90s, it would be better received. Because it's just like, it's such humanistic sci-fi. And at that point, like, special effects were becoming more of an important thing because of like the CGI boom was coming, Batman was flopping, everything was kind of in array from the transition to the 21st century. And I just think that people didn't really want to go see a humanistic movie about people finding solace in something that has been feared by humans for our entire existence.
That is something I wanted to talk about, was the special effects. In the fact that I think in this kind of period from like 95-ish to like the early 2000s, CGI was in a place where when you look back at it now, like if you look at kind of the scene kind of once they get into the mountain, like the projections and stuff don't look kind of photorealistic, but I think it adds to an almost expressionistic kind of beauty. Like if you compare it to something like Contact in when she goes to receive the message, and it doesn't necessarily look real, but the kind of slightly kind of fluid, kind of lucid aesthetic it kind of accentuates kind of the unreality and the kind of spiritual kind of basis on which the kind of images are being used. Like, those are both kind of projections of someone's kind of desires, or it's something they need. So the fact that it feels slightly fantastical, the fact that it doesn't necessarily feel grounded in a reality that you would get practically, I think that kind of adds to it, rather than just feeling like kind of dated or kind of artificial in a negative way.
I think there's something like what you said, there's something of like abstract conception of what these beings look like. And I think if a movie like this was made today, not to like insult the progressions of CGI or anything, but I think it would be made to look more humanistic, more photorealistic. It's like what you said. It would look like it was designed by human beings. This looks like it wasn't. This looks like it just kind of was there.
It does look
like
alien.
It just created. It looks like it's from another realm. It looks like what you imagine as a kid the aliens look like. And there's something. It's almost childlike in how it's designed. It feels like it was designed by someone with imagination of what another realm would look like. This is not. I wasn't even an intended dig. I'm sorry, CGI people today. You get paid way too little for too much work, and I hope you get unionized soon. But like, it's just there's something so beautiful about how you look at an alien like that and you take it completely seriously and you feel the emotions, even though it doesn't look like anything like we've ever seen or ever will see, or even look particularly good by modern standards.
Yeah, that alien is a cutie though. When it came on, I was like, "Aw, yeah, he seems like a nice guy."
I guess one of my biggest critiques a lot of the time is people giving movies shit for having bad visual effects, even if like the filmmaking's good. Like, because I just like, if there is like a thematic idea and emotional attachment as powerful as Mission to Mars has, it's kind of shitty to put all the focus on, oh, the alien doesn't look good, oh, the Dr. Pepper in space looks bad. I'm like, they were in 2000. The movie's good. The filmmaking's good.
I did like the product placement of the Dr. Pepper and the M&Ms though. Like the Dr. Pepper just it just floats through like directly towards the camera perfectly, so you get the full Dr. Pepper logo as it travels across the spaceship. We unlock the secrets of our creation through M&Ms.
I want to imagine De Palma doing like a Dr. Pepper ad. He's just being like, Dr. Pepper, don't know what it tastes like, but so I can make some more fucking movies.
Yeah, like Domino 2019.
Can't wait. It's gonna slap.
89 minutes.
Everyone who's seen it says it's not finished, but it's gonna rock anyway.
Rent Domino, May 31st, 2019.
I am there.
I'm day one projecting it on my laptop. But yeah, it's just I guess there's just I was gonna say something, but now I'm thinking about Brian De Palma advertising M&Ms. That's all I can think about now.
Well, but, this episode will be released the week of Domino to hype up.
Oh, okay.
So everyone get ready. Hopefully, there's something there.
That works out. Like I was thinking, this is like the most random film to choose, like some obscure 2000 like sci-fi movie. But no, that actually works quite well in programming. I'm glad to hear it.
I'm glad to hear we fit into your schedule with this pick. But it's just, oh god, I can't stop. Oh my god, Brian, please advertise M&Ms officially for the company. I beg you.
Well, here, maybe we should start winding down then, because I think Greg needs to go survive.
Yeah, I think I have I think a lot about Don Cheadle at the start raiding Treasure Island with his son, and the first thing that Gary says to him to make him remember who he is that you're reading Treasure Planet with your son, Treasure Island with your son, not Treasure Planet 2002. Treasure Island. I have not seen Treasure Planet. It's just always in my watch list.
Treasure Planet fucks.
I'm waiting to watch it with my partner because they love it.
My god, Logan, you'd love it.
I know I would. Yeah. That's why I'm waiting. But yeah, it's just like he's thinking about that interaction, and it's what snaps Don Cheadle back into reality. Just he's got something to go home for, because he's gonna finish that book with his son. It's just something so like that. Just a little gesture kind of like made me cry uncontrollably.
Yeah, that really solidifies like the kind of central idea of the movie, which is just human connection, like even kind of across space and time. Like the relationships you have with people are kind of the defining thing. Like they define your behavior and they define your decisions. And if you've lost something, like as huge as like your partner, like the person you thought you're going to spend the rest of your life with, like having to deal with that person not being there anymore, like that just feels kind of cosmic and in and of itself. Like that's such a huge thing to deal with. I think that's what sci-fi does better than almost any other genre, is kind of dealing with like these huge ideas and themes and emotions in a not necessarily metaphorical way, but in a kind of less literal way than something more grounded.
It's amplifying everything, so that the emotions at heart feel even more real. It's such a strange thing, but everything is bigger, so the feelings are even like more personal and stronger. Because like even in the grand cosmos, these people are still dealing with the things that everyday humans deal with, and that makes us feel like what we're going through is valid, almost. Like you see like a fucking astronaut millions of miles away struggling with grief, and it makes you feel less bad that you haven't got over the loss of your aunt from years ago. Like it makes you feel better, almost feel comforting that you're not going through this alone. I think another thing the movie does really well is it makes you feel like you're not alone, not alone in the world, not alone in feeling low, not alone in struggling, or not alone in like companionship. It's a very much a movie about everyone is going through similar things that you are. You do not need to be isolated, and there are people in your life that love you and care about you, and they will be there for you when you're struggling, and you'll be there for them. And there's something primal and so beautiful about that.
I think that's a good place to end it.
Yeah, I can't top that.
Score slaps.
Oh yeah, no, it's fucking great.
See when they go into like the white realm, like when they enter there, and then the music kicks into like the cosmos, like the black room. That score alone was like, this feels like seeing God.
Morricone.
Yeah, like it might be my favorite score of his, honestly. That it just makes me sob.
Yeah, I love the Once Upon a Time in the West one as well. But it's such a good score.
Morricone's
he's fucking man. Yeah.
The music, I think it works because like the music could have easily been like dreary or like stripped back or just kind of in the background. But like when the realm opens and you see the universe expanding in front of you, you feel like you're there too. You feel like the sounds alone make you feel like you're witnessing something special.
It is really operatic and kind of grand. Yeah, it's an amazing score.
Thank you. Yeah, this was great fun. I'm glad that you saw this movie.
Yeah, I'm glad I saw it too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I love this movie, and it was great to talk about it in detail because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
and also Alien at one point. Yeah. So Greg, why don't you go ahead and let the people know where they could find you? And obviously, of course, really quick, CHASIN STATHAM. Check out CHASIN STATHAM. Greg and Logan's podcasts.
Yeah, please.
It's awesome.
It's terrible,
and funny,
but we love it.
No, it's great. Don't undersell. You don't have to undersell yourselves, guys. It's good. Don't be humble.
Right.
Thank
we
you.
have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I think that comes across that we're having fun.
My Twitter is @GregHoTurner, but I don't really use it at all, other than to kind of see what everyone else is doing. So I'd recommend you follow the CHASIN Statham account, which is CHASIN without the G Statham. Yeah, which can be a little confusing, but I think it makes the CHASIN Statham works. The G kind of gets in the way. Yeah, I think that was the.
Honestly, the G makes the word look worse as well, so it's fine. It's a good set. We're settling on a good word there. Chasing with a G is dumb. Chasing without the G rocks. Cool word.
Yeah.
You can follow me at LoganKenny1. Please get me to more than the amount of followers I have, because I keep losing like 5 followers every day, and I'm just like, I don't want to go below like 2,300 again.
If you like wrestling, follow Logan.
Love me. I don't tweet about anything else anymore. I'm a bitch.
But thank you, Diego. I need to get food.
yeah. Go ahead. Thank you guys again for joining me. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this episode. If you didn't like it, like and subscribe anyways, because you might find something you do like. Links down to Patreon down below, along with everything else we mentioned. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We have been professionally unprofessional.
For centuries, we've searched for the origin of life on Earth. We've been looking on the wrong planet.